Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
Welcome to Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasick. I'm Mo, and every week I'm asking today's most captivating artists how they got their acts together. This show is not about their best or most famous work, but it's about the work that means the most to them, their creative process, and why they make their art. This week's guest is a critically acclaimed audio producer, host, and storyteller based in Alexandria, Virginia. He is the creator and host of the award-winning podcast, Wait For It, and Leaving the Theater. Please welcome to the pod, Ronald Young Jr. Ready, set, show! Woo!
Hello, Mo. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are making it. You are grinding it. You are doing it.
I'm working hard. It's funny. People see what I'm doing and they see like awards and stuff and they're like, man, Ronald, you're killing it. But I'm like, I have a very specific goal in mind for what success looks like for me. And I have not reached it. And I don't see where it is or if it's even close yet. So
I love this.
So for me, it's like I'm grinding, I'm working hard, but I haven't gotten there yet.
So what's your measurement? Let's off to the races. Because usually we start with a too long didn't read of like a project. And we'll get to that for Wait For It. But what is your barometer, right? If you know it that clearly, what is that success metric?
I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a plot of land with two houses on it. One house to live in and the other house that is a guest house / recording studio where I plan to continue recording projects and putting out stuff and working and continuing to work on things, just like a creative space for myself. That's the goal. Like, I don't think I'll be ultimately happy there, but I think I will be most efficient in the projects that I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to provide to people and for myself.
I love this. So wait, on the way to that, is that something that pulls you forward, or is it's not the house yet? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? I'm like, where are the wins along the way before a house?
I mean, I only see one win. That's the thing. No, like everywhere else is a milestone towards house. So it's like, cool, I got this award. How much closer does this get me to house? Like, and then it's like, oh, I got a new gig. How far is this gig away from house? That's kind of how it looks.
Yeah, and like, what's the conversion of award to house? You know,
pretty much. Yes. What is the conversion ratio?
Conversion rate. Yeah. On your wall where it's like a big temperature, like
that's exactly what it is. It's like I'm a church guy, so they've had those building funds that have been on the wall for years. Yeah, that's me.
And it stays like in the bowl,
correct,
like at the bottom.
We can't get it quite up to the degrees yet. We've just highlighted the bottom. Like, oh, can we get up there? No,
100%.
Yeah, that's where it is. So that's where I put those awards as I get them into the bowl of the thermometer.
I adore it. Well, it's interesting because people tend to criticize others' metric of success. And I always get sensitive to that because people project a lot, right? They'll say like, well, when you get the house, you won't be happy or you won't want this or like, don't you want more or you win? And I kind of go like, there are certain times in my life where it's been like, unless I meet Darren Brown, the mentalist, like I don't care what celebrity, what gig, what anything I get. And then people will be like, no, that can't be right. And guess what? When I met Darren Brown, the mentalist, it felt exactly as I thought it would. It was just as good.
Yeah.
I still feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it matters. Like they're personal. Metrics are personal. So it's like, I know that when I have the house, I'll be in it. I will have keys to it. I can drive up to it.
What that means.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I've been in other people's homes and I've seen how they feel about like the exact same situation where it's like two houses, one plot of land, one's a guest house. I've been at those people's homes and I've been like, you did it. And they're like, yeah, I did. I feel great about it too. And I'm like, yeah, this is incredible. Like this is what I'm looking for, you know? So I know it feels good. So yeah. But homeowners always want to tell you, oh, you got to fix the house and the roof leaks and all that. I'm like, what? That is a blessing to have. What are we talking about here?
It's so interesting. I feel like the older we get, we realize like how the baseline for society is to like be negative and like complain or like, and it's not even in a Pollyanna way. It's like, oh gosh, you're not counting the blessings. Like it's like, you get to clean up that space. You get to tend to a space and care for it. You're buying a Zen garden to meditate every day when, bitch, you could do the gutters.
Yes.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yes. Let me just clean up my house a little, the house that I own.
Yes.
Like this is, I think it's like there's this idea, because I know that with every level that you take, there's new problems and all that. But like, that's something I have to remind myself of, to say like, Ronald, the problems that you are having now are problems you would have wished that you could have had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Completely.
Like this is like, oh man, I forgot to put gas in my car last night before I came in, so now I have to stop and get gas and be late to where I'm going.
Yeah.
I was like, Ronald, you had to wake up 2 hours early because you were taking the bus. You know what I mean? Like, this is different.
It's a perspective that so helps you calibrate when all of a sudden you're like feeling angry, and then it's like, hey, let's recalibrate.
Yeah.
Like, I just messed up and it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to go fill up gas in my sick ass car.
In my Toyota RAV4.
I love that. Rafi. Well, my question is, so you're, for listeners, you're in the, what people call the indie podcast space, right? Where you're creating it yourself. You're making these narrative and so personal and pop culture meets like journalism. And so you're blending all these things. And I am curious, because people who want the house, right, and want that metric wouldn't necessarily go the route that is not known for being lucrative. But there's obviously a creative value being fed to you. So it's like, when you're choosing to make these things and invest all other gigs and times back into this thing, like, does that come to mind? Like, how do you balance that and decide with that?
I think for me, the first thing is to realize that there is no space in podcasting that is lucrative. That's somebody who's been here a long time. I can tell you there's people who are making money in podcasting. But in terms of like making a lot of money, I'm looking at like companies and corporations that have like most of the means to production from beginning to end that are still not necessarily making the money that they want to make. Like through acquisition, there are people who are selling their companies that are making like lots of money at that point. But like, unless you're, Alex Cooper from Call Her Daddy or Joe Rogan from Joe Rogan, those folks,
Joe Rogan from Joe Rogan.
You're not necessarily making like top dollar on podcasting.
Can I tell you, I don't even know the name. That's how allergic I am to all that.
It's called the Joe Rogan Experience is the name of the
that's
podcast.
So embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like unless you're doing those things, you're not necessarily making a ton of money in podcasting. What I think that happens with independence and with independent programming, especially with what I'm doing, is that you have the opportunity I've given corporations an opportunity to own my ideas, and they said no. And then I tested the market, and the market was like, we like these ideas. And by doing that, I feel like there's more earning potential in the future for me than there is with like working for a corporation and all that, which is why I choose to go independent when it comes to a lot of my projects.
It is a choice, but it is like you make it sound easy, right? It's like, it's a difficult choice. Like, you're having to make a lot of sacrifices. You're having to do a lot of things. And I'm wondering, I talk a lot with people I interview about sort of relationship in their creativity and the audience as their relationship, if they're a stand-up, right? Or, duos or acting and scene partners. And it does strike me that podcasting, especially the type that you're doing, right? When you're not necessarily directly interviewing someone for the whole pod, when you're creating a story and crafting something, it is a very solitary co-creation. And is that something that you need in your art, in your expression of your stories? Like, is that something you found podcasting was the one thing to do? Because otherwise, it's like those storytelling can manifest in a script, in so many other ways.
Yeah, man, I think like specifically with the type of storytelling that I'm doing, there's ideas that form in my head, and there's ways that I want to hear my voice saying those ideas, typically in an audio format. The two things that I've been working on the most are podcasting, or now I'm like leaning back into live storytelling again, which is something that I kind of stepped away from for a bit. Yeah. And now I'm starting to like go back into that. But I feel like in most cases, what I've discovered is there is like a solitariness to ideating and creation, but then there's a wonderful team experience that happens when you work with editors, when you work with sound designers, when you work with stage managers, when you work with like other folks that are going to be involved and help you make your idea a little bit better. I feel like what I've struggled with in the past is getting from an idea that's in my head and collaborating with someone to make it an idea that we then bring a team in on, because typically I have like a very clear vision on what it is that I want to accomplish. And I really just need time to sit down with that and make it into something that is like ready to be edited, ready to receive input and all that.
What does that look like logistically? Like, is that just I'm going to make everything and then I'm going to call people into the solitary nest? Like,
correct. That's pretty much it. Like, I feel like right now I'm working on 2 ideas. Like, one of them is a storytelling idea. It's an idea I had called Heartbreaker, where I'm talking about my love life between the ages of 34 and 41, and kind of
specific.
Like, what I learned as a child. Well, I'm 41, so that's just it's basically the last
that's a good cutoff.
years.
Naturally.
So, but like when I'm thinking about that story, like some of what needed to be edited out of that story was determined from performing it for the first time. So I performed it for the first time, and then I was like, okay, now I know what this is. Now I need to go back and write it some more.
Yeah.
But there's ways in which if I were to have not performed it first and then delivered it, I mean, and like went and tried to get somebody else involved or get someone's input on it, I might not have known exactly what it was. We might have assumed that it was something different and started pushing it in a different direction. Exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's always like testing it with people and seeing what they think of it, and then going back and working on it a little bit more rather than working collaboratively from the very beginning.
Well, I adore that, because I think coming from stand-up, it's interesting because I have so many personal things in my work, but that I don't really care about, frankly. Like, it's not very interesting to me. But then there's parts that I know might serve a story, so I need to put in. And there's parts that are interesting to me, I want to say. But then finding out what's interesting to others that make others even listen to the things I want to say more, is invaluable data that I get from live performance, right? If I'm talking about a certain thing, it's like, oh, I didn't even know people were interested in that part. I didn't know that part was abnormal or normal, like whatever it is. So your work is deeply personal. And I would love for us to even right now give the listeners sort of a too long didn't read TLDR on your podcast, Wait for It. So I'd love for you to tell people about what that is.
So Wait for It is a narrative podcast about the ways in which fat folks and everybody navigate a world that doesn't feel like it fits. And it's ways in which we can't stop thinking about our weight constantly. And I think there's people that I think as a society, we can't stop thinking about our weight. I think there's ways in which fat folks bear the brunt of that burden. Mm-hmm. And so most of the stories that I tell have to do with fat folks having to navigate the world, bearing the brunt of that burden, even though there's plenty of folks out there who are all thinking the same things that fat folks are thinking. They're just not fat. So it's about telling those stories through like actual stories from my own life and other people's lives, as well as interviews. We're talking about how people are, making it through those navigations based on like the world of getting around them that doesn't fit.
Which is so exciting, because to me, like any sort of green curtain pulling back is my favorite kind of storytelling, of like showing that everybody either has these inner workings or doesn't, or whatever it is. And so to the point of like live performance and, sharing your personal experiences, like where is that balance for you? Where is that logistical balance of like, okay, I need to tell this creatively for myself. I'm experiencing this. Where do I expand it? Where do I bring other folks in? Like, what is that for you?
I mean, that's where the editing process takes place. So a lot of times I'm writing a whole episode, and then when I'm ready for my editor to see it, I send it along, and she's the first one to be like, this isn't going to work. Take this out. Why do you need this? Hey, I know you like this part, but do you get rid of this?
Do you take that personally?
Not really, because there's like the dance of editing is really understanding what the real note is. Cause like you'll get something from someone that's like, nah, this is a little weird. And you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean this is weird? And then when I listen back through it, exactly. I'm like, oh, you mean this doesn't fit because you didn't know this ahead of time. So let me go back and add this earlier in the script, and then maybe it'll make sense down here. Like there was an episode I did last year called The Weight of Sorrow, where I talk about losing my mom. And one part I wanted to talk about specifically was this scene in a Marvel movie in Avengers Endgame where Thor talks to his mother who has passed. And I wanted to like talk about, I had this like long comparison that I really wanted to put in there. And she was like, do you need this? And I was like, yes, I need this.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Of course I do.
That's what Marvel movies are for, so we can tell our feelings.
Yeah, why would I not put this in here? And then sure enough, she was absolutely right. It did not need to be there. She was like, you've made your point. And I was like, nah, you're right. Like I did. But I'm like a person who likes to keep making the point over and over again. So, but that's where collaboration is like important, because you have someone who can like see your clear vision and say, okay, I know what you're trying to do, but shape this here, move this and you're good to go. And you're actually making the point you're trying to make. And that comes down to trust between me and my editor, Sarah Deely.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
Llegaron los nuevos McCrispy Strips, listos para aventurarse en la mezcla de mayo ketchup, la barbecue que quedó en el fondo de la cajita, hot fudge sundae y en la nueva creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Los nuevos McCrispy Strips, ahora en McDonald's. Para pa pa pa.
That, I mean, the death of your mother was so personal, and it's like, it is interesting taking notes in that, because one, it's like you want sort of the prismatic perspectives of all your examples and all your explanations, and then at the same time you don't want to do it so much that it dilutes the others. And so it is good to have the other folks in there saying like, oh, this isn't good, this isn't whatever, but it is a personal relationship that is like very intimate.
Yeah. First of all, like the vulnerable stories that we tell are the best stories that we tell, like period. Like people like, I always think about John Mulaney. I think he did, I forgot the name of his, I think it was called The Comeback Kid. Baby J. Thank you.
Baby J's the recent one, 2023.
Okay, so he did Baby J. First of all, let me just say, I love John Mulaney. If he ever hears this is not a criticism of any of his work.
I can't wait.
I think he's very funny. And I hope that he keeps doing what he's doing until he's dead. I love it. But I will say the one thing that bothered me about Baby J was he held back parts of the story that I think would have made it more tangible for us to actually understand. He told enough of it that it was funny and that it was
context,
a joke. You know,
enough to have context.
That's exactly it. He told us enough for context, but he didn't tell us enough to actually feel with him or be personal with him. And that might have been because he wasn't comfortable sharing it or whatever. But I feel like as a storyteller, my thing is like, if you don't share those parts of it, then your audience is always going to be like, that was nice. But there's a difference between that and your audience being like, I understand. And I always want them to understand when they leave, when they stop listening to a story from me. They're like, oh, I understand, Ronald, just a little bit more, which I think that's important, especially when you're doing art in the public eye.
I think it's also the promise and the sort of exchange that is necessary, because, I mean, it is interesting specifically with an example of him because there was no intimacy in any of his previous specials or work.
Yes.
And that was his style. That was great. And it was wonderful. So then when you do delve then into intimacy, you're maybe not so aware of the sort of agreed upon needs to travel someone through those experiences and get them safely to the other side, get them whatever it is to the other side. And instead of, risking either triggers or unresolved or just not a full formed piece, he just didn't go there as much, which I totally see what you're saying on there, which is, I think, the better of the two choices, which is just to be like trauma dumping on us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it is. I think there's, so Martin Lawrence did a special called Run Tell That. Jamie Foxx recently just did a special. What had happened was,
but here's my thing. I agreed with the feedback that was more of a testimony because it was church. It was his story.
Yes.
And okay. We're getting into this. I love this, but I loved it. I love Jamie Foxx's.
I did. I liked them both, but I feel like in terms of the difference between that and like a Baby J is that if you go to like somebody like Jamie Foxx, I felt like if you look at a spectrum, he replaced like in parts emotion with drama in a lot of ways in that.
That's such a good nuance there.
Yeah. So, and I was like, there's ways in which I think he could have pared back and probably still been impactful, but instead he emphasized with certain parts of it that I felt like, I didn't know if you needed that. If you're just telling the truth, all you need is a mic and maybe lights. But other than that, like that's really all you need.
There was dramatizing, and it's so funny because it's like they both could meet in the middle, where it's like,
yes,
Jamie Foxx could have used some joke punch up because he already is so embodied and emotional and wonderful and present.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, John Mulaney could have used the more presence in that. And it's like that balance is such a magnetic sweet spot to watch. But I do think like the dance of to the point of like the audience being your co-creator and like of your the perception of you and whether or not you want to lean your hand in, will you not get that social acceptance from the famous people then? Like it's all those sort of dances where your life is your art then.
Yeah. I think that's the tricky part about it is if you like for instance, even with me and with Wait For It, like if you choose to start living your life in the public eye or you start mining your life for material,
yeah.
I really think you really have to have some sort of escape hatch or some sort of like other thing brewing that is not your life. That way, if you decide to stop talking about your life as a part of your material, it is not like strange or jarring for people for you to not be talking about it. Case in point, I also talk about pop culture, movies and television, and I have like an established enough voice there or hosting things that are not Wait For It. You know what I mean? And I feel like having enough room there, that way people aren't just being like, Ronald's the guy who exposes his feelings and always talks about like everything going on in his life. Why is it? Because I remember like I had a conversation with a girl who like we were hooking up, and I remember she was talking about specifically about how she never keeps any secrets from anyone. And I'm like, well, I'm more of a private person. I definitely don't want all my business in the streets. And she's like, well, I figured from your work with Wait For It that you'd be more open to, because there's nothing that like has ever happened between us or anything that I'm not going to tell all of my friends. And I was like, one, this is the last time that we will ever be doing anything. And two, I don't like how
this lady needs boundaries. It sounds
correct.
like.
And I'm like, two, I don't see like how you're conflating like what I am actually letting folks in, what I've curated for you to hear as me just telling you all of my business. And I think the market difference for that for Baby J is like, you can also over curate. You could say like, I'm not only not going to tell you all of my business, I'm barely going to tell you anything, but I'm going to tell you in a way that for the untrained ear or untrained eye, you're going to think that I let you in on something when I really didn't let you in on just about anything here.
Or I'm going to use myself as the avatar, right? Like that's what I find interesting is whenever I'll write a character or something that's deeply intimate, no matter what, people are going to say it's you.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of have to let it wash over you and go, okay, great. If that is like what is needed in this time, you kind of just can't let that stick to you.
Yeah.
And like to me, my release hatch is just like, oh, I wrote a character, like because there are parts that aren't me. But if you write something that is curated, that is you, it is hard to separate and be like, oh, okay. Because it's like in your intimate life, it's affecting you. It's literally someone being like, well, you should be. I thought my perception of you was that you were more open, so you should be. It's like, what?
Yeah. That's why having friends is important, you know, because like friends will always, I mean, there's times where I like hang out with my friends just to be reminded of who I am, you know what I mean? And like what my position is amongst people who don't listen to Wait For It or listen to any of my work, but only know me as Ronald and are proud of me for what I'm doing. But that's not the whole story for them. But I think there's a lot of folks like, I mean, you want to talk about the Kanye West problem. They get like so swept away in their own idea of their own genius and creativity that they have nothing that grounds them to the reality of life.
No checks and balances.
Exactly.
There's
and
no
like
checks
you need
and
all
balances.
checks, no balance, just everything needs to be checked, man. Like just like there is no balance. So I feel like, but yeah, I feel like that's the work of like a creative is to say like, yeah, I'm going to make things, I'm going to do things, but I'm also a person that is living and experiencing the world, and everything doesn't have to be a project. You know what I mean? Like everything doesn't have to be like recorded and mined for material.
But this, what I say is where we as like sort of audience members to anything do need to take our power a little bit more seriously, because that sort of discernment, those checks, like because everything in everyone's life is constantly mined and constantly created socially and social media. When Kanye, you know, when we like started the descent, everyone was sort of like, no one was doing checks as an audience. Everyone was still tuning in and viewing. And I think the value of our attention needs to be given a greater weight because it has an impact. It is a check and a balance. when it comes to co-creating with our heroes, with our artists.
That's what we thought cancellation was. we thought it was like, here's
because
the penalty.
Cancellation was no accountability. There was no back in.
No, but at the very minute we were saying like the cost of this is the eyes on attention. Because I think like I can't listen to R. Kelly anymore. Not because I don't want to, but because when I turn on the music and I listen to him singing, I'm like, I don't know who he's singing about. I got to turn this off because based on the allegations, he could be singing. And I'm like, I want to enjoy the song and just sing along, but I can't do that. And I feel like maybe it's because there's a way in which our conscience has been like, as the Bible would say, seared by a hot iron. Like you could feel nothing anymore.
So that's exactly what I was going to say is because I think we try and fix these problems collectively when it's like, no, it's everything from within. So it's like people need to be tuned in to their own sensitivities.
Yes.
People need to be able to listen and see art and go, God, I don't know why, but I don't like that.
Yes.
And it's like, and so it's like that to me is like how you fix it. You don't go, F that person, screw that. Like, of course, do that to R. Kellys of the world. But it's like, when we're trying to get rid of everything bad, there is no sustainable change within.
Yeah.
So when you can tune everybody to their own individual intuition, or when you don't push people down for them being like, gosh, I don't want to listen to, Michael Jackson or whatever. And then people are, why? It's like, okay, like that's your tuner. Just listen to that. And so that it's hard because it's like you're trying to find massive problems, solutions to massive problems that have individual answers. Do you know what I mean?
No, I get it. I mean, but I mean, we're in a society now where everybody's consuming. Like the idea that content creator is a job, which I'm just like, to me, it boils down something artist. Like we used to be called artists. Like used to make art.
Creation. Yeah.
Like that was thing. So now they're saying content creation, and they've taken all of the things that are beautiful, the Sistine Chapel, you know what I mean? Michelangelo's,
it's
all that.
still capitalism.
Yeah.
It's making it capitalism.
Yeah. And you've boiled it down to just slop content. And that's the same thing that's comparable to the person who's just like, I don't know, doing skits in their house, which that's not lowbrow, but to say that you have to be on the treadmill to keep churning that stuff out, that's all of a sudden it's changed completely our relationship with us as an audience to say we're constantly consuming and not really enjoying anymore.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Not enjoying or not being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because people identify with their artists so much. If there's criticism to the artist, they're like, you hate me. And so then they can't take it, right? But then when someone will say like, I talk about the nuance, right, of the art versus the artist and, not wanting to listen to R. Kelly versus like not being allowed, all these things. And my example always is it's like, well, where's your line? Because it's like if we are constantly just getting rid of art that makes us uncomfortable, then like get rid of Starry, Starry Night. Like Van Gogh was ripping his ear off to like torture his brother. It's like psychological manipulation, the house down. And and so it's like that makes me uncomfortable. I have to then deal with that while looking at that art, while being moved by those things, seeing what parts of me I don't like, seeing what parts about him I don't like. That's why it takes individuals constantly looking at things that they enjoy or saying something made them uncomfortable or like finding value in something that didn't get a lot of likes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's a way in which I think we could join hands and point attention to work and art that like deserves to have like more of our support. And I think every now and then it happens naturally. You know what I mean? Like something will go viral that you're like, man, I'm happy this went viral. I'm happy it was this and not like this silly TikTok dance where the version of it I probably made up when I was like drunk in college at some point and we just didn't have cameras back then. You know what I mean? Like, but like, I feel like you hope that happens. But I mean, as long as we're in the system of capitalism and, you know, art turns into slop or just content, then I don't have hope for the cream always rising to the top. But I will say there's still a lot of hardworking people out there who will push their way up if necessary.
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. But how does that work for you when it comes to like being within the machine, if you will, and then also like wanting validation for your work? Because it's complicated.
Yeah, I think like, I mean, for instance, awards. There's awards that I apply for.
You're like, I got it. I don't need it.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like there's awards that I apply for and awards that I don't apply for. You know what I mean? There's, I look for a path that aligns the most with what my actual goal is, which is to buy a home. So because that, yes, exactly. 2 houses, 1 plot of land. But the goal is if I orient myself in that direction, then I'm less distracted by anything that like seems appealing or seems like it's just like, somebody said to me the other day, they're like, Ronald, you should try to be on more reality shows. And I was like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be a reality star. I've like examined what reality stars are doing. I examined how they live their lives and all that.
And what they have to do after to maintain. It's
correct.
hard.
And it's like, it feels like you're just like trying so hard to like stay above water because you're essentially famous because you like were participated in a show or you were a character on a whatever, you know what I mean? As opposed to like me saying, I'm going to work really hard and make work that is meaningful, that will last in people's lives. Hopefully they will wait for it like years after I stop making it. Hopefully they talk about it years after I stop making it in ways that like inspires other work that people point back to and say, oh, I did this because of wait for it. Like that's what I aspire to do with the work that I'm doing. I don't just want to be like somebody that people like that lived in a house with 7 strangers. Like that's not to demean anybody that got to their house through real world, but it is to say that's not how I want to do it.
No, and I would say that it's the population. Like I know a couple of folks that have been able to take that platform and either have a full reality career or change it into
like
something
The Miz
like
or
that
Jamie
tells
Chung.
their
I know
story.
exactly what you mean. Theo Von.
100%. Parvati, Karamo. Like it's all these different people that are like doing incredible work, but the population it's 1 out of 2 out of how many million folks? Like, it's
and
like
I'd
that,
argue they would have done that anyway. I'm arguing.
Of course,
I'd
they would have found
with,
a way to make an
with or
impact.
without Real World. Real World was one thing, but notice because the thing that gets me always, if you think about Love and Hip Hop, right? Like there's a show, Love and Hip Hop, VH1. It's a basically
Cardi.
a rap.
Are you gonna say?
Yeah. Well, Cardi B, and then also Omarion. 2 people who were on the show.
Was he Icebox?
Icebox and supposed to be. But I'm saying like they come out and he was also B2K. So I don't like let's not get this dude is a heavyweight. Yeah. So but both of these folks, they were on the shows and the minute their career started to blow up, they're like, I'm off these shows. Like Cardi was on for 1 season. It's like, I'm out of here. My song's blowing up. Same with Omarion. So it's like I don't want to keep having to re-up and be on a reality show every the only point of I'm saying is like I'm not going to get distracted by things that feel like tangible or feel creative when it's not actually going to get me to where I'm trying to go.
Well, I also think you're intuiting why those people are giving that advice, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like if somebody said like, you should go on reality because it's like you live with your identity and it'd be so cool to see you in this space. It's like, that's one piece of advice. But if someone's saying like, go be famous for this and you'll have a platform and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not, do you know how much work those, no. Like,
no. So, somebody said to me once about my Instagram, they were like, they said, you got to post every day. You got to do this, blah, 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 so-and-so. And I was like, what you don't understand is that I don't ever want to have the Instagram of a content creator. I am curating the Instagram.
That's a full-time job.
Correct. I am curating the Instagram of a celebrity. And if you look at a celebrity's Instagram, they're like, I haven't posted in 6 months, but I'm still Will Smith.
Zendaya does a Bulgari once a year.
You know, and she has 1 million followers. So I'm like, that's what when I think about myself, I'm like, or my creation, I'm like, that's the lane that I want to be in, as opposed to being in the like just a person that's still on the treadmill cranking out work which again, and some of that work is good. Like a matter of fact, a lot of that work is good. There's something about it that feels soulless.
But I think that's the difficult part. Like, we had on here Vinny Thomas, who is a really successful TikTok person.
Yeah.
And he talks about that, where it was like so many people gave him advice of like, do it this, da, 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 da. And he's like, it has to come from like an organic play. Like I'll delete things. I want to do this, because I think what a lot of people who are making art right now, they don't stand a shot in hell because there's so much messaging at them that they need to be a business person as well.
Yeah.
They need to churn it out twice a day. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, babe, like, just so you know, like, all of us are resting the dough sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like, you can't be a machine. You're a human. That's why you're an artist.
Yeah, you nailed it. I feel like I always want people, if they visit me, if they see Ronald, it's like every time they return to me, I've improved a little bit more. It's like seeing my house being built. And like they went away for 2 weeks, they come back and be like, oh, you got the foundation down. Cool. And they come back and be like, oh, they framed it. Nice. And they come back and they're like, oh my God, is there a second house they're building back here? That's crazy. And then like maybe months later they come back and I'm like sitting at the house. I'm on the porch. They're like, oh my God, your house is beautiful. That's how I want people to look at me and my career,
beautiful.
where it's like there's been progression the whole time. But I feel like there's some people who are just like, nah, if you don't got a house, print out a picture of the house and put it on the lot and stand in front of it and tell people I got a house. And I'm like, that's what it feels like a lot of folks are doing in their creation.
Because they'd rather the external validation than the internal feeling.
Exactly.
And it's like...
Exactly.
And it takes a long time to realize that. And I mean that. Like, it's like, it takes a long time to realize that, like, marketing company, whatever, like, would rather let you think that the external is better.
Yeah.
And to have to undo those and uncondition yourself from all that, it's like, it's almost you get out and you're like, oh, I don't give a shit what you guys. Oh, what a bummer. I've been working towards something that I didn't really care about.
Yeah, I didn't believe in this at all. You know what I mean?
Well, what do you do when you bump up against that? Like when it's like, when you're in like a space where like maybe the ideas aren't flowing, maybe it's not churning. Like, how do you sort of care to that off season for yourself?
I mean, I'm coming out of a season like that now. And for me, it's like, I've learned this from one of my, from my pastor. One time he told me, because I was about to move to Richmond. It was after college and I was going to move to Richmond and work a job down there with some friends. And my mom didn't want me to go. And my pastor was like, look, man, if you don't hear anything from God, the answer for you is to wait. It means you just need to wait. If nothing's happening,
wait for
then
it.
You just wait. Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm like I remember I've taken that practice where I'm just like, if it's not ready, if the idea doesn't have a name, if it's not like pushing forward in a direction, then it's time to wait.
Inspiration hasn't moved me off the couch. Yeah.
Exactly. But the other thing that Octavia Butler says is that she wrote that inspiration, it's a bad thing to wait around for. You also need habit and discipline, because that's going to help you get to where you're trying to go. So I try to balance between the two of them. So I'm like, I need to be disciplined in doing something every day or regularly that isn't necessarily the next big hit thing. So for me, that might be practicing piano. It might be like working on my podcast, Leaving the Theater, which really isn't about fame and fortune. It's just about being able to go see free movies. Like, you know what I mean?
Heaven
like,
on earth, though.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's so working on your projects or watering my plants, like looking at them, thinking about how I can improve like
flow
the
state,
home I'm
things
in
that
now.
require flow state.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So like, it's really about pushing forward into those projects when something big hasn't happened. But then like in the middle of the night, like my new storytelling show, Heartbreaker, it just came, like I woke up and was like, it's called Heartbreaker and it's going to be about this. And then I told it once and I'm like, great, now I can move forward. And that's the direction I'm moving in for my next like 2 or 3 projects, where I'm like, if I finish this, then this should also inform this. And then I can also do this, which is
Isn't that
great.
exciting?
Super exciting.
When like the web starts building its way out.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it is such a balance. And like, I mean, I always come back because I was an athlete and I was pretty obsessive. Volleyball.
Oh, nice. I love volleyball. I like
do you
to
really?
set.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
I
Nice.
set, yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. We
Yeah.
always need a setter is the leader on the courts that doesn't get the credit. You know what I mean?
Wait, so what position did you play?
I was outside hitter.
So you're like 6'2".
Well, here's the thing. I had incredible vertical. I'm like 5'11".
Okay.
They would lie and say I was 6.
Got you. Okay. I was like, you're either tall or you got hops. And that's okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I have both because when I got to college, it was so funny because like I was one of the shortest. Like I was so short, and I played defense, but it was just so funny because it's like I had lived my life as a tall person, and then you get to like college sports, and you're like, I'm short. I'm actually very short. Yeah,
no, y'all 5'11's like I'm 5'9", and I feel very good about my height. But like every now and then a 5'10" or 5'11" girl come up, I'll be like, now hold up. Now.
It's so fun. I used to say my favorite thing about being like 5'11" is how loud and I put in quotes, 6 foot men say, no, you're not.
Yep. the same thing happened with people telling me I'm not 5'9", because a lot of 5'7" guys ruined it for us by telling everyone that they're 5'9". They're
that's
like,
so real, because that is the roundup.
You got to be at least 6 feet. I'm like, no, I'm 5'9", and that's the thing.
That actually benefits you. You get the benefit and the positive.
I'm like, sure, I'm 6 feet, but then some 5'11" girl is going to tell me I'm not when she walks up to me.
Well, here's my new theory is I had to tell someone. I was walking, and it was like a first date, and I went, and I looked, and I was looking him in the eye, and he had said like pretty like on his, I've dated short, I've dated tall, and he was like, I'm 6'4". I looked, and I was like, no, you're not. I was like, you're already over 6. Like you ain't gotta lie. Like I'm looking at you though. Like what?
Yeah.
it was one of those like Larry David moments where it just got under my skin, because I was like, why would you? You don't need to. What are you doing? Like
you already made it in, man. Like I was looking up at you slightly. That's all you needed.
Slightly to obviously a 6'1.5", 6'2".
Like, yeah, that's all I need.
But it made me laugh so hard, because I was like, why do people lie? But people be lying about it all the time. But to the athlete point of it, I think there's such a gift. I feel that discipline, right, to me is the flow. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of artists could benefit from understanding this. Like when I would spend 9, I broke off my poor parents' garage door, because I would just hit the volleyball for about 9 hours a day in the summer to improve my swing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, to me, it wasn't blood, sweat, and tears, although it was my favorite song, Heart of a Champion.
Yeah.
But it was flow. I wasn't thinking. I was fully present. I was meditative. I was enjoying, and like, that is where other ideas come in. Other inspiration comes in. And yes, it's discipline. Yes, it's making myself do something, but I didn't do it because it was hard or discipline.
Yeah.
It just was a framework that allowed for flow to come in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're basically about like setting yourself up and like creating a space in which ideas can cultivate and are invited in, and that's what you're doing. So that's the key. And I feel like trying to live a life where ideas feel welcome to blossom is kind of like the key to doing anything well. And that's why I'm excited about my next few projects, because I'm like, I didn't have to do much. And you know what? Let me tell you something that happened in therapy. Okay. And my therapist might be mad at me because I actually double booked an appointment today. And I had to send one of those shameful emails. I was like, I'm so sorry. Your time is valuable. Please forgive me. Like all of that.
Please don't charge me.
Yeah, please, like charge or not charge, just don't leave me is really what I'm saying.
Oh no.
So, but I remember I said to her one time, I'm like, I keep living my life as if all of a sudden I have this box, and when it opens, I'll finally be happy. And I'm like, and she says, well, what if the box is already open? And that kind of blew my mind. And thinking in
this is Schrodinger's box. I love it.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, is the box open and closed? Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But like, she's like,
are you happy or are you not?
Exactly. But the thing is, if the concept is that happiness happens when the box is open, if the box is already open, that means all of the elements that I have in order to be happy already exist, which means that I would say the same thing for ideas. All the elements that you have for a good idea already exist within you. You just have to trust them, and you have to create space in your life for them to manifest and for them to make sense. And the only other thing I would add for me is that, like, if your idea doesn't have a name, give it time to develop a little bit more, because most ideas name themselves.
Ooh, that's beautiful. And that's like, I think, a helpful personifying of ideas.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, it will tell you are working with an idea.
Yeah.
It is not like yours to pull from the stone in that way, where I think you're right. And like, I even in my therapy, we work on like, it's less so, to me, it's even in any case, it's less so letting go, healing, creating, and it's the environment in which you are safe, well and happy enough to do those things?
Exactly.
Can you put down your baggage? If you are in chaos, no, and don't do it, and don't get mad at yourself for not.
Yeah.
Like that's the hard part. But I think you're so right. It is like, can I create a space where this perception that the box is, and then it also has this external thing of like someone else is going to open the box eventually.
Correct. Or they
And
have the
it's like,
magic to
no.
open it. Yeah.
And you don't, but it's your box. You're holding
mine.
it.
Yeah. What are
Like,
we talking about? Like,
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
I love that. Did that shift? You're right. Like, was that session something that brought in the stuff you're talking about?
It definitely opened some door, like, because it was funny because that happened, and then like maybe a week later I got the inspiration for Heartbreaker.
Oh, that tracks pretty cool. I love that.
So I was like, it was when I was thinking through those terms, and then it also, like, when I started thinking about Heartbreaker, I was like, I was always thinking about, well, what's the next thing I'm going to do after Wait For It? Like, what's up next? All of that. And then it occurred to me that, like, this is the next thing that I'm going to be doing. And this is also, it pairs well with the another idea that I thought was going to be the next thing. But this is kind of the bridge to that idea, which feels good. So now I have to find out ways to get them both into reality. And when that happens, I think I'll feel good. I will say something that's always true is, like, I know we're like, I'll be happy in the future. Something that always makes me happy is completing a project. So I know that if I could complete these, turn them from ideas into actual reality, then I know that is something that I can 100% look forward to.
Yeah, because the joy is in the accomplishment.
Yeah.
And I always laugh because I think creative ideas, like you're talking about, like Heartbreaker came in, visualization always helps for me, and it's never the thing. It's me laughing at myself when the thing finally happened.
Yes.
Like, it's because it's like dating. It's like anything where it's like, is this person out there for me? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like the second you're in a relationship, you're like, why was I worried?
Yeah.
And
like,
so
this
I
is
like,
kind of lame.
yeah, you're like, what's the next one? Yeah, exactly. I want a next idea, quote unquote. But it is that. And I think that sort of like that patience of like letting it name itself and appear to you.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to figure it out, just like figure how you feel. How are you going to feel when you get there? How are you going to feel like, and you held enough of a general idea of wanting to do something that you're not abandoning the last thing. You're like, oh, this is a connector. This is going to get me there.
Exactly.
And that's so exciting to see, like, oh, that's how that worked out. That's why that mattered.
Yeah.
Like, that's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm pumped about what the future holds for me, but I'm also pumped about what I can accomplish in the present. So I think that's kind of where I am right now.
Because I think you're living at the way where it's like it's the same thing. I think even my friend Catherine was just on, and we said like everything you want in your life, you have in it now. It just looks a different way.
Correct.
Like, and so I think you're in that space, which is like, I like that more people are talking about being in that space, because I think for a long time it was either pointed to as religious or spiritual or like unwilling to work. And it's like, no, that has nothing to do with it.
No.
It's a full just faith that, life isn't going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Life is happening right now.
Yeah. In a very real way, which is fun and crazy and sucks and rules. Like, I love this. Well, we're moving to my final segment, which I think you'd probably enjoy. So the final segment is called Thank You for Holding My Poems. And it is inspired by the Russian poet Anna Akhmatova, who during the Great Terror, it was illegal to publish poems of resistance. And so a group of writers at the time would memorize edits of each other's works and poems and fully just hold them in their hearts and minds over the course of 30 years until it was safe to publish. And most famously, her poem Requiem. But I take that as an artist that we're all constantly holding each other's poems, even if it's a Marvel scene that meant the world to you, that made you understand loss, even if it's a barista saying like, incredible shirt. And then you realize that feeling of joy is right there in that moment. That to me is a poem. And so I'm wondering if when I'm telling this to you, a poem comes to mind for you.
Like a moment, or are we talking?
We're talking all of it. It's abstract. So I have moments where it's like I was at my lowest and then someone connected with me and I was like, whoa, like I'm here. I'm real. Like and then some people have literal poems. Some people have advice they were given that meant the world to them.
I feel like for me, it's always, I always like finding like confirmations that I am like being cradled in the hand of God, like that it's not just me like out here. And I feel like there was one time where I had to write the eulogy for my mom's service. So it's coming up on a year on May 19th. So I was writing a eulogy, and I remember I was like pulling some thoughts together, and I had some ideas and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't know, like maybe I'll say this, maybe I'll say that, who knows, whatevs. And then I remember I got into a fight with my dad the night before the funeral about like what we were doing, and I didn't want to ride in a limo. They were like, "We're taking a limo," and I'm like, I don't want to take a limo. I think that's stupid. I hate that.
It's like prom, yeah.
Yeah, like yes, exactly. They're like, why am I driving in a fancy car to my mom's
That's
death? Like,
so funny.
yeah,
That's incredible for stand up.
So my dad's like, no, we're gonna drive limo. You're not gonna feel like you want to drive. I'm like, that's exactly what I want to do that day is drive. Like, I don't know what y'all is like thinking. You've been too distressed on she's been dead for a while now. Now I gotta like. So I remember we're in this fight, and then the next day I wake up. I mean, I go to bed that night, and I had the first dream I had about my mom since she had died. And so like I had this dream, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember she was there, right? I remember a palpable presence, and I woke up and I couldn't think about I felt better. So I immediately went and I just banged out the entire eulogy, just put it all down on paper. And I wasn't going to read it anyway. It was going to be something that I just kind of referred to back. And while I'm writing it, my dad called me. He's like, "Hey, son." And I was like, "Hey." And he was like, "Hey, man, I just want you to know I love you. All right. Just meet us at the house. You don't got to take the limo." And I was like, "Cool." And he goes, "All right, we're in this together." And I said, "Yeah, we're in this together." And "we're in this together" has kind of just been echoing in my mind, like since he said that last year. It's something I think about now. I think about it more in this political climate, and with everything that's going on. We're in this together kind of like repeats in my mind over and over again.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Because it's also, right, he set aside his feeling because it's like, it's not about that. It's about us. It's about being in here together.
Yeah.
Oh, I adore that. That is a perfect poem. That is exactly what it is. It's a moment of connectivity within mess and creation. A mother figure of mine passed away recently, and I'm like excited to celebrate her life in many ways.
Yeah.
And so are you doing anything fun to celebrate your mom?
No, not that I know of. I mean, I know I wrote her a letter, so I've decided I'm going to go read her a letter.
That's so nice.
But we'll start there, because I feel like this is a letter where I'm like, I want to talk to her personally. Like, this is some stuff that I thought.
Oh, beautiful. That's holy alchemy. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So we'll see. That's about it. Other than that, like what death has done for me recently has just reminded me like the way in which life doesn't stop, and the passage of time is just like, it is brutal and relentless, because we counted a month over and over again from getting further and further away from her dying. And I still feel the presence of like the actual moments into her death and then beyond, which feels like the fact that they exist on the same plane is wild, because the world is now like a completely different place now than it was before. And now I understand what it's like to live in a universe where my mom doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Yeah. And understanding that for me is a markedly worse universe. And then I start to think about other people that don't exist here, like Robin Williams. I think about him all the time. He doesn't exist here. And I'm like, man, what would the world be like if like Robin Williams were still here? Like, and I feel like if you could relate to that and say, what types of jokes would Robin Williams be telling right now? What podcast would he be on? Like, what would he be talking about? What would we know him for? And if you could think about that universe, that's kind of the same relationship I think about my mom, to say like, what would she be saying about what's going on right now? What would she be thinking? All of that. So it's really brutal, the passage of time when it comes to loss, what that does in our minds when you really start to think about the world that exists before and after loss.
Well, I mean, it's, as above, so below. I think loss, I adore quantum theory and like multi-world, Copenhagen, like all these different, and I do think sometimes my sort of more artistic side gets into it, where I go like, of course there's multiple universes and worlds. You can feel into one where someone isn't here and they were here. You can think into, like, when you experience extreme loss, grief, or trauma, you understand time in a way that is not on our clocks in our day-to-day. it has no bearing on like the way something moves or measured. It is a full feeling, and it is a full time travel world breaking. And I think it is a gift to know time in that way and have it bend. But it is also, as you say, like it comes at such a cost.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny because I was like, time machines do exist. They only work one way, though. That's the biggest problem.
Isn't that crazy?
Like
Isn't that
everything else
crazy?
gives you a glimpse into the past, but you'll never be able to be in the past or affect anything, which is why I think anytime they make a time travel movie and they're like, sorry, there's some fixed points, there's some things that you can't change. I was like, yes,
points, yeah.
because it's absolutely impossible to truly try to create a world in which you change one thing and it becomes the ideal thing that you want in the future, because you're actually doing that right now. Like you are making decisions that are impacting your future every single like moment that you're here. And you can only imagine what that looks like for tomorrow. And then you just have to live in that reality, whatever that is. And then constantly beat yourself up into thinking that I could go back and make different decisions that would change my reality today. That's like.
But there's the lesson that people don't take, right? Is that there's an infinite amount of possibilities with every choice you make turning left, right?
Well, that's why I like the multiverse theory way better. Because at least I can say there is a universe
someone who
out
did
there.
It for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. But my thing is, it's like people then, instead of like, they just get overwhelmed by no, the gift in that, right, is also that like, you can't, like when you feel responsible for everything and every choice you make, it's like, no, it's not on you in that way where people find the weight of that. It's like, to your point, you can't go back. You can't know how fixing that one thing would change it.
No.
You don't know.
No. There's things like people say now, like, Ronald, if you knew now, what would you change? I'm like, the only thing I could think that I know I would change is I would go back to college. I graduated from college as a criminal justice major with a political science minor. I would go back to college and be a mass communications major. That's the one thing I would change. And I know the infinite.
Everything else would change.
Yeah. There's a bunch of things that unravel.
You would actually become a lawyer for criminal justice.
Probably wouldn't even be surprised. But I'm like, but even like, again, that one decision means that there's people I would not have met. There's relationships I would not have had that are important to me. You know what I mean? Like just because I changed it.
I get so pedantic with that when people talk about like even like trauma or harm or whatever it is. Like, would you like change? It's like, I'm like, no, not a single second of anything.
No,
sorry,
not if it gets me here. I will say there's versions like if it's like Ronald, you'd still get there, but maybe you could get rid of these two things that sucked. I'd be like, get that trauma out of here. What are you talking about?
You'll still get there, but you're going to be crying a little bit less.
Whatever. Yeah. Trauma.
Totally fine. Take that. Well, Ronald, this has been so lovely. This has been beautiful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
I love this. Can you let our listeners know where to find you and where to listen to what you want them to listen to?
You can find me on Instagram at It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. I'm there. I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. Same handle, essentially, at OHITSBIGRON. You can listen to my podcasts, Wait For It, or Leaving the Theater, wherever you listen to podcasts. That's Wait For It, WEIGHT. I'm working on new stuff. The easiest way to find out about that is to follow me on Instagram and Threads. And this has been great. Thanks for having me, Mo. This has been wonderful.
I'm so glad you enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Well, I end every episode by giving my listeners and you a compliment, and is gender non-specific, but I say, oh my God, you're so pretty.
Thank you. That's so kind of you.
Of course. Thank you. This was so nice.
Thank you.
Worse Than You with Mo Fry-Pasek is hosted by me, Mo Fry-Pasek. You can learn more about this week's guest and the Worse Than You team by checking out the show and episode copy. Worse Than You with Mo Fry-Pasek is executive produced by Erica Ghetto, Mariah Gossett, and Lauren Mandel for Good Get and Disconnect Productions. Oh my God, you're so pretty.
It's called the Joe Rogan Experience is the name of the
that's
podcast.
so embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.